the city of Oakhaven, silence isn't just golden, it is survival. They tell us from the moment we are born, the tongue is a whetstone, and every word is a blade. But that isn't quite right. In this kingdom, it is the breath itself that betrays you. You see, Oakhaven was cursed long ago by a god who grew tired of the clever deceits of men. He decreed that no lie would ever again pass a human throat without leaving a mark. If you tell a white lie, a simple, "I am fine," when your heart is breaking, your throat will itch with the sensation of fine sand. If you tell a grey lie, a boast of a deed you didn't do, you will cough up a handful of jagged glass shards, tasting of copper and salt. But if you tell a black lie, a betrayal, a vow break, a grand deception, your lungs will crystallize entirely. You will become a living statue of jagged, translucent quartz, suffocating in a glittering tomb of your own making. My name is Elara. I am a Shatterer. And in Oakhaven, my job is to sweep up the diamonds that fall from the mouths of the dying. Oakhaven is a city built on a vertical scale of suffering. At the top, in the high spire, live the silent nobility. They are the masters of the loom of silence. They communicate through a complex language of hand signals, rhythmic tapping, and written scrolls. Because they never speak, they never lie. Because they never lie, their lungs remain as soft as a summer peach. They look down on us with pity. Or perhaps it's hunger. Down here, in the silt, we don't have the luxury of silence. You cannot haggle for bread with hand signals when you are starving. You cannot comfort a crying child with a rhythmic tap on a table. We speak, we stumble, we lie to survive. The harvest is good today, a farmer might say to a tax collector, knowing the crops are rotting. He pays for that lie with a fit of coughing that leaves his throat scarred, and his voice a raspy whisper. But there is a dark economy to our agony. The glass we cough up isn't ordinary. Depending on the weight of the lie, the shards can be as hard as diamonds. The king's guards, the larynx guard, roam the silt with velvet bags. They don't want our gold. They want our glass. They want the physical manifestation of our sins to adorn the Queen's crown. Last Tuesday, the air was heavy with the smell of rain and old blood. I was working the late shift in the weavers' district. My broom was worn to the bristles, and my lungs felt heavy. A lingering sand itch from telling my younger brother we'd have meat for dinner. I turned into an alleyway and saw him. He was a noble. You could tell by the silk robes, now shredded and stained, but he wasn't standing tall. He was slumped against a crate of rotted tubers, his chest heaving, and he was glowing. Usually the glass we cough up is clear or crimson from the blood, but this man's throat was emitting a pulsing violet light. I should have run. To touch a noble is a crime. To see one shatter is a death sentence. But then he did the unthinkable. He opened his mouth and he spoke. It's all a hollow song, he wheezed. With every word, a sound like a mirror breaking echoed in the alley. He didn't cough up shards. He coughed up entire geometric shapes, perfect violet octahedrons that hummed with a low, vibrating frequency. I knelt beside him, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sir, please, don't speak. Use the signs. He grabbed my wrist. His hand was cold, already turning into something mineral. The king, he whispered. The king does not stay silent to be holy. He stays silent because he is the first lie. Then his eyes turned to glass. A final violent tremor shook his frame, and he became a statue of violet crystal, frozen in a scream of silent truth. I did something then that would haunt my dreams. I didn't call the guard. I took my Shatterer's hammer and struck the violet statue. I didn't want the gold or the fame. I wanted to know what a violet lie felt like. The crystal shattered into 1,000 glowing embers. I scooped them into my tunic and ran. That night, in the cellar I share with my brother, Kale, I looked at the shards. They didn't feel like glass. They felt like memory. When I held a shard to my ear, I didn't hear the wind. I heard the king's voice. It wasn't a voice of a god. It was a voice of a man, terrified and ancient. The Sun Eater is coming, the shard whispered. The curse was not a punishment. It was a seal. As long as we lie, the monster stays fed on our shards. If we all speak the truth, the seal breaks. The world ends. My breath hitched. The sand itch in my throat suddenly felt like a forest fire. If the king was telling the truth, then our suffering was the only thing keeping the world alive. Every jagged shard we coughed up, every neighbor who turned to glass, was a sacrifice to a hungry god under the earth. But if the shard was lying, then the king was simply a monster who liked the taste of diamonds. Kyle saw the glow. He's only 12, but the silt has made him old. He didn't ask where I got the crystals. He only asked, "Are we going to die, Elara?" "Not today," I lied. The itch in my throat flared. I coughed, and a small, clear shard fell into my palm. I stared at it. A small price to pay for a brother's peace of mind. We decided to go to the core. If the Sun Eater was real, it would be there, at the very bottom of the city, where the foundations meet the bedrock. We moved like shadows, dodging the Larynx guard's lanterns. As we descended, the air changed. It no longer smelled of salt. It smelled of old lungs. The walls weren't stone anymore. They were calcified ribs, miles long, arching over the subterranean rivers. We reached the Great Valve. This was where all the collected glass from the city was dumped. I expected to see a treasury. Instead, I saw a throat. A massive, organic pit, miles wide, lined with teeth made of obsidian. And then were the guards, emptying their velvet bags of our agony into the pit. The Sun Eater wasn't a monster in the sky. It was the city itself. Oakhaven was a living organism, and we were its white blood cells, being consumed and replaced. Our lies the only fuel that kept its heart beating. "Who is there?" The voice didn't come from a mouth. It came from the air itself. The king stood on the precipice. He looked down at us. 2 ragged children with glowing violet shards in their hands. He didn't look angry. He looked exhausted. He signaled with his hands, a motion so fast I could barely follow. "You have found the heart of the lie." I stood my ground, holding the violet crystal high. "Is it true? Does the world end if we stop lying?" The king stepped closer. He reached out and touched the silver wires on his lips. He didn't sign this time. He pulled a small, sharp shard from his own pocket, a shard of pure, blinding white. He swallowed it. His chest heaved. The wires on his lip snapped like violin strings. "The world does not end," the king spoke, his voice sounding like grinding tectonic plates. "Only this world ends, the world of glass, the world of silence. We have been afraid of the Sun Eater for 1,000 years. But look at what it actually is." He pointed into the pit. I looked, deep in the darkness, where the glass was falling. There were no teeth. There was a seed, a massive, glowing seed, be nourished by the minerals of our lies. We weren't feeding a monster. We were suppressing a birth. The Sun Eater was a new sun. It was a new world trying to grow, but it needed the truth to ignite. Our lies were the glass that kept it trapped in the dark. The king looked at me. I have told the grandest lie of all. I told the people that silence was safety. And for that, I will not just shatter. I will become the dust between the stars. He turned to the pit and screamed. Not a scream of pain, but a scream of every truth he had ever hidden. His body didn't turn to glass. It turned to light. A blinding, violet-white explosion that rushed up the pit like a solar flare. I looked at Kyle. I looked at the violet shard in my hand. Kale, I said, I lied to you. We aren't going to be okay. Not in the way you think. The sand itch in my throat vanished. For the first time in my life, my lungs felt light. I turned to the city above, to the nobles in their silent spires, and the poor in their jagged huts. I filled my lungs with the cold, damp air of the core. Listen! I roared. I told them about the king. I told them about the seed. I told them that my brother deserved a world where he could say, I love you, without tasting blood. Across the city, I heard it. A symphony of breaking glass. Thousands of people, all at once, speaking their truth. The sound was deafening. The sound of a kingdom shattering. The walls of Oakhaven began to crumble. The calcified ribs snapped. The glass lungs of the world were finally breathing. They say that when the old world broke, the shards didn't hurt us. They turned into rain. Oakhaven is gone. The spire is dust. But today, I woke up and I didn't check my throat for sand. I looked at the horizon, where a new, violet-tinted sun was rising. A sun born from the honesty of the broken. My name is Elara. I used to be a Shatterer. Now, I am just a woman who speaks. And the truth tastes better than diamonds.